I have been in the business for about 50 years. I have some experience to tell about. In the early 70s, as physicist, I was employed to build a computer model of the most northern part of the Baltic Sea. I had to travel around for 3 winters, collect data, and of course I shared part of that data with a responsible agency. When I asked the responsible agency to get some sea ice data back for my work, I got it, but I got a bill and had to pay for the data. There are many reasons for this unwillingness to share data. We have to know that the data producers, they have observed for their own purpose, using their own funding. But in the funding, there is no money for organizing the data and distribute it to others. When I many years later was responsible for sea ice data in Sweden, I had to charge, and I couldn't change the system. Even if it was paid for common funds, the governmental money, I couldn't change the idea of charging for data because it was decided by the parliament. To create data was so expensive, so the politicians, they thought it must be a big value in data, you can sell it. 30 years later, we had convinced the government to release our data freely. Of course, data are exchanged between different users if there is a mutual interest. ICES has exchanged data since 1903, freely in between the ICES members. In the region conventions, we exchange a lot of data. And we shall not forget meteorology, which started to exchange data already 1853. And the data was actually marine data and ocean data. Certainly there is a great value in using the existing data more than once and in wider community. And when we started to work with EMODnet, the word we used was measure once, multiple use. And the work was to establish a system where you could access the data freely for your own purposes. We realized rather early that to be successful, we had a few specific challenges, and it was data policies, suitable technology, and dedicated funding. When we worked with data policies in different organizations, in different projects, the result or the consensus was always free and open access. It was not easily done, but in the beginning at least trying to convince data owners that we had a way forward, we could make something if they started to realize that everybody could be winning by exchanging data. The technology and the standards were to a large extent already developed in different EU projects and also in other contexts. So it was mainly to implement existing technology and make them work. EMODnet had its real big contribution in creating dedicated funding. And slowly by using the different kinds of projects, we could, in regions and in different disciplines, start to build up a system where the databases were opened up for collection. For example, when we used the regions, they had really started to work together because they had a mutual interest in their basins. You know, we are not talking about land where you have a nation, we are talking about what's between the nations, and everybody are interested in what's happening in the area in between. The projects created a system, and today we have a marvelous system where we can access data freely from all the different disciplines, and the data are still at their homes managed by the original data producers. A former operational oceanographer as I am, responsible for ocean forecasting, the opportunity to access real-time data is, in my opinion, the greatest value I can see. It was a dream that came through. Maybe it sounds odd, but I believe that EMODnet has created a system that is visible enough and also important for a multitude of users. This means that it has a big chance to sustain, because there are customers who will complain if the data is not existing anymore. And as you know, as oceanographers, we have big problems all the time to argue for our observations. And observations are the basic truth in anything you are doing when you create a knowledge. All users of sea resources will find value in EMODnet's basic information and data. But most of them, including scientific research, will need additional data, dedicated for their own purposes and much more in detail than we can collect in EMODnet. So let us hope that when they make these more detailed investigations, that they submit those data to EMODnet.